There comes a moment in every life where something begins to crack, and it feels like the ground you've been walking on is suddenly disappearing beneath your feet. You try to hold on to the old patterns, the old identity, the old comfort, but the harder you grip, the faster it slips away. This is not coincidence. This is not chaos without purpose. This is the quantum shift announcing itself. It feels like death because it is the death of who you used to be. The old self is stubborn. It clings to habits that no longer serve you, relationships that drain you, and beliefs that keep you small. It whispers, "Stay safe, stay the same." But when that whisper grows louder, when the world around you starts to shake, you must understand, you are being called to evolve. That pressure, that discomfort, is not here to destroy you. It's here to bury the version of you that was never meant to carry you into the next chapter. Think of a snake shedding its skin. The shedding is uncomfortable, even painful, but without it the snake cannot grow. You too must shed. The identity that once protected you now suffocates you. The patterns that once kept you afloat now drag you down. You are not being punished, you are being prepared. The quantum shift is a law of transformation. It demands that before you rise, something within you must fall away. You cannot carry old fears into a new dimension. You cannot bring weak habits into a life of strength. You cannot drag yesterday's limitations into tomorrow's breakthrough. The universe itself is shaking you, testing you, stripping you bare so that you can rebuild as something greater. And here is the choice: resist and suffer, or surrender and rise. If you resist, you will feel like you are drowning in your own life, replaying the same cycles, stuck in the same frustrations, haunted by the same regrets. But if you surrender, if you allow the old self to die, you will step into a field of possibility that you have never touched before. The death of the old self is not an end. It is a doorway. And the doorway is narrow. It won't let you through with baggage, with excuses, with the weight of what no longer belongs to you. You must walk through light, stripped, raw, and willing. On the other side, the version of you that was always waiting begins to emerge. So if you feel like life is breaking you right now, pause and listen. It isn't breaking you. It's breaking open the shell of the self you've outgrown. This is the necessary death, the beginning of the quantum shift. And if you are brave enough to let the old self die, the new one will rise with a power that even you cannot yet imagine. The pain you feel is not a curse. It is not life punishing you, nor some cosmic accident designed to break you down. The pain is the signal. The discomfort is the threshold. It is the doorway you must walk through if you want to step into a higher dimension of who you are. But here's the paradox. Most people run from discomfort. They numb it, avoid it, deny it, and pretend it doesn't exist. They build entire lives around protecting themselves from it, chasing comfort, routine, predictability. Yet comfort is the most dangerous trap of all. Comfort locks you in a box while your potential starves to death inside you. Discomfort, however, is a guide. It's the whisper of your future calling you forward. Every ache in your spirit, every restless night, every moment where you feel this can't be it, that's not punishment. That's life itself inviting you into evolution. Think about it. The seed must break apart to become the tree. The caterpillar must dissolve into chaos before it becomes the butterfly. The human being must walk through fire, storms, and shadows if they are to awaken the power hidden within them. Discomfort is not destruction. It is transformation in disguise. And this is where the quantum shift happens. The moment you stop interpreting discomfort as pain and start seeing it as a signal, your reality changes. Suddenly, every challenge is not something to run from, but something to walk through. Every obstacle is not a wall, but a portal. Every fear is not a stop sign, but an invitation to expand. When you lean into discomfort, you step into a new frequency. You rise above the old self that was built only for survival and enter the space where creation begins. The quantum shift is never born in comfort. It is born in the chaos, the stretching, the moments where you thought you couldn't go further but did anyway. Look back at your own life. The moments that defined you weren't the easy ones. They weren't the smooth seasons when everything fell into place. The defining moments were when you were tested, when you were broken open, when you thought you were finished but somehow kept going. That was discomfort shaping you into someone greater. And here's the secret. Once you walk through discomfort once, you realize it doesn't own you. It loses its power. You begin to see discomfort as fuel. You start to chase it, embrace it, welcome it. Because you know now, it's the gateway. And every time you walk through, you expand into a greater version of yourself. So the next time discomfort comes, don't hide, don't numb, don't run. Step into it. Lean forward. Because discomfort is not here to destroy you, it is here to birth the quantum shift that will set you free. Dreaming is easy. Anyone can close their eyes and imagine a different life. Wishing costs nothing. It demands nothing. That's why so many people spend their entire existence lost in someday. Someday they'll change. Someday they'll start. Someday they'll rise. But someday never comes, because wishing doesn't move you. Wishing keeps you trapped in the fantasy of potential without ever crossing the threshold into reality. What separates the few who transform from the many who stagnate is not the size of their dream, it's the strength of their will. Will is the bridge between vision and reality. Will is the fire that carries you through resistance, through fear, through discomfort. Without will, the dream collapses into dust. With will, the impossible bends and reshapes itself into the inevitable. Here's the truth most avoid. The universe doesn't respond to wishes. It responds to decisions. The quantum shift is not triggered by hope, it's triggered by will. It's that moment when you stop saying I want and start saying I will. That one shift in language changes the entire trajectory of your life. Because want keeps you waiting, but will pushes you into motion. Resistance will always rise the second you commit. Fear will always whisper when you decide to move. The old self will fight to keep you safe, to keep you small, to keep you dreaming but never doing. That's why so many never step forward. They think resistance is a sign they should stop. But resistance is the proof you're entering new territory. It's the signal that transformation is happening. The will to act despite resistance is the essence of quantum living. When you apply your will, you collapse the endless possibilities of what could be into the concrete reality of what is. You pull your vision from the field of potential and anchor it into time and space. That's not magic, it's alignment. It's the physics of creation. Look around at those who've reshaped the world. None of them were dreamers alone. They were people who decided, people who chose to act, people who said I will and meant it. They turned their will into energy, their energy into action, and their action into transformation. That is how every quantum shift in history has unfolded. Not through wishing, but through will. And here's the key. Will is not a feeling, it's a decision. You don't wait to feel ready. You don't wait to feel fearless. You don't wait for the perfect moment. You decide, and in deciding, you create the momentum that pulls everything else into alignment. So ask yourself, are you just wishing for change, or are you willing it into existence? Are you waiting for permission, or are you choosing to move? Because the moment you stop wishing and start willing, the quantum shift begins, and nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop a soul that has decided. From the moment you were born, chains were placed upon you, not physical ones, but invisible codes, rules, beliefs, expectations handed down by parents, teachers, culture, and society. You were told what to value, what to chase, what to fear, what to worship. You were handed a script before you ever had the chance to write your own. And without even realizing it, most people spend their entire lives trapped inside this inherited framework. But here's the truth. Those rules were not written for your liberation. They were written to keep you safe, predictable, controllable. They were built to maintain order, not to unleash your greatness. And if you never question them, if you never challenge them, you will die with someone else's story running through your veins. The quantum shift begins the moment you break those chains. It begins when you stop accepting this is just how it is and start asking, why? Who decided this for me? Does this rule serve my evolution, or does it keep me small? Inherited chains are subtle. They sound like voices in your head saying, don't take risks. Don't dream too big. People like you don't succeed. Stay in line. Play it safe. These aren't truths, they're programming. And every time you obey them without question, you reinforce the prison walls around you. But when you begin to revalue them, everything changes. What if failure isn't shameful but sacred? What if success isn't measured by society's applause but by alignment with your soul? What if safety isn't found in security, but in the courage to create? This is the revaluation of all values, when you take back the pen and rewrite the code of your life. This is not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It is revolution for the sake of authenticity. It is the courage to carve out a path that belongs only to you, even if the world doesn't understand. Because the truth is, they don't need to understand. They didn't hear your calling. They didn't feel your fire. The chains they wear are not yours to carry. And here's the beauty. The moment you break those chains, you don't just free yourself, you alter reality. You shift frequencies. You step into the quantum field as a creator, not a prisoner. You stop repeating history and start inventing destiny. You send a signal into the universe that says, I am not here to conform. I am here to transform. So ask yourself, whose rules are you still obeying? Whose voice still echoes in your mind when you hesitate to rise? Are you living the life handed to you, or the life you've chosen? Because the chains are only as strong as your belief in them. The moment you choose differently, they shatter. Break the inherited chains. Rewrite the code. Carve a path that is yours alone. That is the essence of the quantum shift, becoming the author of your life instead of the actor in someone else's script. Suffering is not the end. It is not life's cruelty designed to crush you. Suffering is the forge, the fire in which your raw material is tested, melted, and reshaped into something unbreakable. Without suffering, there is no depth, no strength, no evolution. Every legend was born in the furnace of struggle. Every breakthrough rose from the ashes of pain. Yet most people treat suffering as an enemy. They run from it, numb it, bury it, hoping it will disappear. But suffering never vanishes, it waits. It will hunt you until you face it, until you step willingly into the fire and say, I will not be destroyed by this. I will be reforged. This is where the quantum shift reveals its power. Because in the old way of living, suffering is only pain, a punishment to be endured. But when you shift your perspective, when you see suffering as material, everything changes. Suddenly, every tear, every loss, every heartbreak becomes fuel. Every trial is not a wall, but a hammer. Every dark night is not an ending, but a kiln shaping you into steel. Think of a sword. Before it can cut, it must be forged. Metal must be heated until it glows, hammered until it bends, cooled until it hardens. The process looks brutal, but it is sacred. The suffering of the steel creates its strength. So it is with you. Every blow you have endured, every fire you have walked through, has been molding you into the weapon destiny requires. But here is the choice. Will you let suffering define you, or refine you? Will you let it make you bitter, or will you let it make you unbreakable? The quantum shift happens when you stop seeing suffering as punishment and start seeing it as preparation. You stop asking, why me? And you start asking, what is this shaping me into? Look back on your own life. The person you are today, the resilience, the wisdom, the strength, was not born in easy times. It was carved out in the moments you thought you couldn't go on but did anyway. That's not weakness, that's alchemy. You took pain and turned it into power. That's the forge at work. And here's the key. Once you know suffering is the forge, you no longer fear it. You don't run from it. You embrace it. You let it mold you. Because you understand, on the other side of this fire is the version of yourself you've been waiting for. On the other side is the steel of your new character. Unshakable, unbreakable, unstoppable. So when suffering arrives, don't curse it. Don't collapse. Stand tall in the flames. Let the fire do its work. Let it burn away what is weak and let it leave only what is strong. That is how suffering becomes the forge. That is how the quantum shift turns pain into power and trials into triumph. The world is loud. It is full of opinions, distractions, and expectations. Everywhere you look, there are voices telling you who to be, what to do, how to act, and what to desire. And while the crowd feels safe, while noise feels like belonging, it is also the prison of your potential. You cannot hear the call of the quantum shift in the chaos of 1,000 other people's agendas. You cannot find yourself when the world is speaking for you instead of you speaking for yourself. Solitude is not loneliness. It is power. It is the laboratory where your mind, spirit, and vision converge. It is where you strip away the inherited rules, the fears, the distractions, and finally see what you are truly made of. Solitude is where transformation gathers force because it is the space in which the old self cannot hide, the illusions cannot thrive, and the quantum self can emerge. Think about it. The greatest breakthroughs in history, the quantum leaps of consciousness, rarely happened in crowded rooms. They happened in silent nights, in moments of reflection, in deep isolation where the mind could expand beyond ordinary boundaries. It is in these moments that clarity comes. It is in these moments that insight strikes. The world may call it stillness, but it is actually the hurricane of transformation quietly forming in the background. In solitude, you confront the parts of yourself you have been avoiding. The doubts, the fears, the weaknesses you hide in plain sight are illuminated, and instead of running from them, you begin to observe them, understand them, and convert them into fuel. Every thought, every feeling, every fragment of your being becomes raw material for the new self you are creating. This is how the quantum shift takes shape. It requires a space free from external noise, a space where your mind is allowed to connect with higher possibilities. Solitude is also the forge of vision. When you are alone, you are no longer reacting to the expectations of others. You are no longer trapped by the opinions, the judgments, or the distractions of the collective. You can imagine freely, dream boldly, and plan courageously. The vision that emerges in solitude is not diluted by conformity. It is pure, aligned with your highest potential, and capable of altering the course of your life. But here is the truth many fear. Growth demands isolation. It is uncomfortable because humans are wired for connection, for distraction, for validation. To step into true quantum transformation, you must willingly face the quiet. You must embrace the space where your only company is your own mind, and your only task is creation. So if you want to awaken, if you want to transform, if you want to step into the power that lies dormant within you, seek solitude, not as punishment, not as avoidance, but as the crucible of your becoming. Here in the silence, the quantum shift gathers strength, vision takes form, and the version of yourself you were meant to be begins to emerge. Chaos is not your enemy. It is the raw energy of creation. It is the storm before the breakthrough, the wild force that shakes the old self loose and the invisible hand that forces evolution. Yet most people resist it, cling to predictability, and crave safety. They try to arrange life neatly as if order could exist without chaos. But true transformation, the kind that triggers a quantum shift, is never born from comfort. It is born from chaos. When life collapses around you, when expectations shatter, when the familiar crumbles, you feel fear. You feel disoriented. You feel lost. And that is exactly the point. The old self relies on stability, on routine, on the illusion of control. Chaos strips all of that away. It exposes what is weak, what is unresolved, and what must change. It forces you to confront reality at its rawest, most unfiltered state. And in that confrontation, the seed of your transformation is planted. Chaos is a mirror. It reflects the gaps between who you are and who you are capable of becoming. It challenges you to adapt, to create, to rise above what has been holding you down. The quantum shift happens when you stop fighting the storm and begin to move with it. When you learn to navigate chaos instead of running from it, you discover a deeper power, a power to restructure, to rebuild, and to create new order from the energy of disruption. Think of a blacksmith forging steel. The fire is violent, the hammer strikes relentless, the metal bends under pressure. But from this struggle emerges strength, durability, and precision. Chaos works in the same way. It is the hammer striking your life, testing your resilience, reshaping your vision, and forcing you to align with your highest potential. The quantum shift is not a gentle process. It is an alchemy of destruction and creation. Embrace chaos and you find freedom. The old rules, the old expectations, and the old fears begin to dissolve. You stop trying to control what cannot be controlled. Instead, you focus on your power to respond, to create, and to transform. Chaos is no longer a threat. It becomes a partner, a teacher, and a catalyst. It becomes the invisible force that propels you into a new dimension of yourself. Here is the crucial insight. Order is not the absence of chaos. True order emerges because of chaos. It is the result of adaptation, decision, and courage under pressure. Each collapse, each disruption, each challenge is a chance to reimagine your life, to reforge your identity, and to step into the quantum field where your potential is unlimited. So when life becomes chaotic, when the storms rage, and when the ground beneath you shifts, do not despair. This is your moment. Chaos is the fire that shapes your destiny. Walk through it, bend with it, and let it sculpt you into a force capable of creating order where none seemed possible. That is the essence of the quantum shift, finding clarity, structure, and power born from the heart of chaos. The world is full of rules, many of them arbitrary, many of them inherited, and many designed to keep you small. Society offers guidelines, culture offers expectations, and authority offers limits. Yet if you follow them blindly, you remain a prisoner of someone else's design. The quantum shift begins when you stop obeying the laws that do not serve you and start creating your own. Crafting personal laws is not a philosophical exercise. It is a declaration of sovereignty over your life. It is the recognition that your potential cannot be contained by the rules of others. It is the moment when you say, "I will no longer live by default. I will live by design. Every choice, every action, every boundary you set becomes a building block in the architecture of your destiny. This is not about ego or rebellion. It is about alignment. When you craft your own laws, you are not defying reality. You are creating a framework that supports your evolution. You decide what is non-negotiable, your discipline, your integrity, your pursuit of growth. You decide what is expendable, fear, doubt, distraction, and the chains of expectation that others have placed on you. In doing so, you move from being reactive to being the conscious creator of your life. Think about the quantum shift. It is not just a change in circumstances, it is a fundamental change in frequency. To operate at a higher frequency, your inner environment must align with the energy you wish to manifest. Your personal laws are the infrastructure of that environment. They guide your decisions, dictate your focus, and channel your energy into forms that accelerate growth and transformation. Without them, you drift, reacting to external forces, and your potential remains dormant. Crafting personal laws also requires courage. It demands honesty with yourself, the discipline to enforce boundaries, and the humility to recognize where you have been living in contradiction to your own highest truth. Every law you establish must reflect who you are becoming, and who you refuse to be. This is the quantum mindset, conscious creation through deliberate action, guided by principles that serve evolution. Once you take this step, something remarkable happens. Clarity replaces confusion, purpose replaces hesitation, and energy that once scattered now consolidates into unstoppable force. You begin to notice that the world itself seems to respond differently. Opportunities align, synchronicities multiply, and the pathways you could not see before become illuminated. This is the power of living by laws you have crafted yourself. So ask yourself, whose rules are guiding your life? Which laws are you following out of fear, habit, or obligation? And which laws will you craft to define the version of yourself that you are becoming? The quantum shift is waiting for you on the other side of that choice. Craft your laws, live them fiercely, and step into the life you were always meant to create. The journey does not end. There is no final destination. There is no moment where you arrive and say, I am complete. Life, like the universe itself, is in constant motion, constantly expanding, constantly evolving. The quantum shift teaches us that to truly live, you must embrace eternal becoming, the ongoing, unending evolution of self. Eternal becoming is not a philosophy. It is a law of existence. Your old self dies. Your awareness awakens. Discomfort transforms you and will propels you forward. But none of it is permanent. The person you are today is only a stepping stone for the person you are becoming tomorrow. Every experience, every challenge, every triumph, and every failure is raw material for your evolution. You are never finished. You are never static. You are a process, a force of perpetual transformation. Most people fear this idea. They crave stability, predictability, and security. They want to arrive and stay there. But arriving is an illusion. The moment you believe you have reached the pinnacle, you begin to stagnate. True growth demands motion. True power demands motion. True life demands motion. And that is the essence of the quantum shift. The willingness to never stop evolving, never stop questioning, never stop pushing beyond what you thought possible. Eternal becoming also requires courage. It is easier to settle into the comfort of what you know, to cling to the familiarity of the old self. But comfort is the enemy of evolution. Every step forward, every leap into the unknown, every surrender to growth stretches you into a new version of yourself. The quantum field responds to those who are willing to keep evolving, who are willing to risk, who are willing to be uncomfortable, and who are willing to challenge their own limitations repeatedly. This is where mastery lies, not in reaching a destination, but in embracing the process. Your potential is infinite because life itself is infinite. Every obstacle becomes a teacher. Every moment of pain becomes fuel. Every period of solitude becomes a laboratory for transformation. And every choice you make either accelerates your evolution or keeps you trapped in the gravity of the old self. Remember this: eternal becoming is freedom. It is liberation from the idea that you must be defined by your past, constrained by your circumstances, or limited by what you once were. You are a quantum being, a dynamic force capable of constant expansion. You are not here to remain static. You are here to evolve, to stretch, to create, and to rise endlessly. So live like a force in motion. See every ending as a beginning. See every failure as preparation. See every transformation as a door to a higher self. The old self dies, the new self rises, and the cycle repeats, an eternal dance of growth, strength, and potential. This is the power of eternal becoming. This is the quantum shift in motion. And this is your invitation to step fully into a life that never stops evolving, never stops expanding, and never stops becoming more than you ever imagined possible.